I'm 22. I'm a fourth-year student at MISiS, the metallurgical faculty, the Department of Metal Physics. Usually at this point, my interlocutors in the minibus nod politely and fall silent. Even my mother still can't remember the name of my specialty. She just says, "Nastya, you're studying something about metal, right?" That day, everything was as usual. Morning. Another class. A teacher with a coughing voice draws phase diagrams on the board. I yawn, then a buffet with coffee, which always slightly burns your lip, and a noisy corridor in which even a whisper is reflected as a scream. We are sitting in room 700. We have a special subject, boring and difficult, but the teacher, Viktor Ilyich, an old professor with fingers yellow from nicotine, tells it like a tale from his youth. You can listen to him forever. He always says that steel is not just an alloy, but destiny. I was sitting by the window. The weather was stupid. It seemed sunny, but somehow cloudy, unnatural. The wind was blowing dust down the street, and the glass was shaking with every gust. Sanya was yawning next to me, clicking his pen and eating something like nuts. We had known each other for a long time. Since our first year, we spent the night together in the dorm on the cold floor while preparing for exams. And if someone had told me then that in a few days we would be sitting in the basement of the physics building with a crowbar and canned food, I would have simply laughed. Some strange notifications started popping up on the phone. Not news, but pushes from the Russian Emergencies Ministry. Like, "Don't leave the building unless absolutely necessary. Don't panic. Keep calm." Someone thought it was a drill, or maybe a prank. But when 6 of these notifications arrived in 10 minutes, even Viktor Ilyich stopped talking. The room became quiet. Completely quiet. One of the students tried to turn on the news. The Kommersant website did not open. Telegram loaded with a delay. The public started writing something about Dolgorukovskaya Street. Allegedly, the police blocked the road there and the military was seen. They also wrote that someone bit someone in the metro at Sukharevskaya. It's funny, isn't it? The first rumors are always taken as a joke. I remember laughing and saying, "Well, yes, a new virus. Again, like in China. Only now in Moscow, right?" But someone ran past the door. Fast. So fast that it felt like it wasn't a person. The sound of soles like claws on tiles. We all turned to the door, but no one opened it. We were just silent. Viktor Ilyich said quietly, "Close the window just in case." And for the first time, there was no iron in his voice. There was fear. I stood up, went to the frame, closed it, turned around and saw that Sanya was already standing next to the door, holding the tripod from the device in his hands. The other guys just silently took out their phones, their fingers shaking. One girl, a first-year student with skinny arms and a big backpack, began to whisper a prayer. There was nothing outside the window. Emptiness. No cars, no people, no sound. And that's when I realized something went wrong, and it won't come back. At first, we just sat in complete silence. Even Sanya, who usually can't keep silent for 2 minutes, just stared at a point. I felt the air in the classroom getting heavier, not because it was stuffy. No, someone had quietly opened the window and a cold March breeze blew across my neck, but because there was something alien in this air. Unspoken, like before a thunderstorm, only instead of lightning, the unknown. A few minutes later, someone tried to make a joke. Something like, "Elon Musk must have dropped satellites again. Now we're in a panic." But his voice sounded out of place, heartrending, and no one else laughed. Viktor Ilyich stood up, walked over to the door, and looked out into the hallway. We all looked at each other. He was silent for almost half a minute. Then he came back and said, "We're closing in. We're barricading the door. Quickly. Everything we have is going to it." We didn't argue. We didn't even ask questions. We just stood up and started moving desks, chairs, and rolling carts with equipment. Sanya found an old folding board and propped the door handle up with it. The girl with the backpack, her name, as it turned out later, was Veronica, pulled pepper spray out of her bag. "Daddy gave it to me, just in case," she said quietly. My phone vibrated. An emergency alert from the Moscow government. No sound, just text in bold letters. Citizens, a biological emergency has occurred. Please remain calm. Stay indoors. Do not contact infected people. Do not leave the building. Wait for rescue teams. And below it, just below, there were already dozens of comments, as if someone had hacked the system or there was simply no moderation anymore. They're climbing through the ventilation. I saw a man start eating his wife. Everything's lost, guys. Burn the bodies, they're getting up. I didn't know what to think. None of us did. All these messages seemed like nonsense. False news, fantasy, some kind of weird game. But everything that was happening no longer felt like a normal day at the university. A dull thud sounded in the hallway, then another, as if someone was slowly, persistently hitting the wall with something heavy. We all froze. The hall was a complete vacuum of sound. Even my own heartbeat sounded like a drum. Maybe someone is left outside, Veronica whispered. We need to see. But no one moved. I went to the door. I bent down and looked into the narrow crack beneath it. It was dark there, and only a barely noticeable shadow moved from left to right. Not a person. I couldn't explain why, but I felt it. Not a person. For a second, everything was quiet, and then the door jerked. With a loud screech, someone was hitting it with all their might. We fell on the barricade. Someone screamed. The girl by the wall began to sob. Sonia held the tripod like a spear, and for the first time I saw him tremble. But the door held. After maybe a minute or two, everything went quiet. Completely quiet. It was as quiet outside as it was inside, just breathing and occasional sobs. This isn't a drill, someone said. This is like a movie about zombies. Don't say that word, interrupted Viktor Ilyich. No need to panic. We're in a safe zone. As long as no one is infected, we have time to think. Rationally. I clung to that word like a life preserver. Rationally means breathing, thinking, acting. We turned off all unnecessary devices. The light was left only at the board. We moved bottles of water closer, collected food from backpacks, sandwiches, cookies, a couple of chocolates. Phones began to die, and only 3 of us had chargers. Everyone who could threw power banks in the center for general charging. Night was approaching. We decided to stay here until the morning, to spend the night, and in the morning to assess the situation. Perhaps everything will clear up. Perhaps rescuers will arrive. But inside, I already knew nothing will resolve. No one will come. And the university, which was a second home, is turning into something alien, scary, alive, or on the contrary, dead. Night fell unnoticed. A gray haze hung outside the windows, as if someone had pulled a damp sheet over the entire building. The streetlights did not come on. There was no light even in the places where it always turned on automatically. At the guardhouse, at the side entrance, above the porch. It felt as if someone had turned off the entire city, leaving only a residual glow, like in a room where the light bulb burned out long ago, but you still believe that you see. We gathered closer to the center of the auditorium, not because it was warmer there, it was just scarier to sit in the corners. People huddle together when they are afraid, even adults, even scientists. Sonia suggested establishing a night watch, like in a camp. 3 don't sleep, the rest take turns to rest. It sounded stupid, but Viktor Ilyich unexpectedly supported him. Like, watch is discipline, and discipline is the key to survival. His voice became harsh again. In the darkness, he seemed almost like a parent. I felt a strange relief. Someone older, so he knows what to do. We divided the shifts. I was in the second one, from midnight to 3. Before that, I tried to fall asleep lying on a pile of jackets. It didn't work. My eyelids were burning. My body ached from fatigue, and my brain was spinning the same thing. Maybe this is a dream? Maybe the alarm will ring now, and I'll run to my first class? But the alarm clock didn't ring. When it was my turn, I sat down by the door. In my hands was a heavy sports dumbbell, black with peeling rubber. Next to me sat Sanya. He tried to stay alert, chewed nuts, sorted through the keys to the labs. "Maybe there's someone left alive in the neighboring building," he whispered. I nodded, but I didn't believe it. The third one on duty with us was that same Veronica, the girl with the backpack. She turned out to be stronger than she seemed. She sat on the edge of the table and looked at the university map that someone had left on the board. She wasn't panicking, not whining, not hysterical, just focused, calm. "I'll have to check the chemistry department," she said suddenly. "There's a first aid kit there and maybe some alcohol." Sanya nodded, but I noticed how he twitched slightly. Until now, no one had spoken out loud about the possibility of leaving the auditorium. We were all holding on to it as the last line. At 2 o'clock in the morning, someone moved behind the door again. First, footsteps, slow, drawn out. Then something like scratching. Light, as if someone was running their fingers along wood. I froze, clutching the dumbbell, and pressed my ear to the door. And I heard breathing. Heavy. Ragged. Not machine-like, not electronic. Human, but with some distortion, as if the lungs were turned inside out. "There's someone there," I whispered. Sanya came closer. He squatted down and looked out through the crack at the threshold. He came back. His face was deathly pale. I don't know, there's someone standing there, just standing, not moving. We didn't open it, naturally. We just waited. And after a while, the breathing disappeared. And the next morning, there, behind the door, there was only a puddle. Not blood. Something light brown, viscous, like thick coffee. We didn't open it. We decided not to touch it. The morning came without light. It just suddenly became grayer. We sat in silence. Those who were not on duty looked worse. People slept in each other's arms, trembled, some cried. One of the guys, named Kolya from the automation department, began to mumble something in his sleep, about his mother, about having to call, but there was no connection. At all. Sanya, gritting his teeth, stood up and said, "We can't sit here forever. We need to check the neighboring classrooms, find water, food, check if there's anyone else." He was right. We knew it, but no one wanted to say it out loud, because until we opened the door, everything was at least a little safe, like in a box, like in a womb. But as soon as we leave, all this hell, which can also be called, maybe this is a mistake, becomes reality. And yet we opened, slowly, very slowly. There was nothing behind the door, just dim light from the windows and a dead silence. No bodies, no blood, just the feeling that the building was listening, waiting, hiding. We agreed to go in 3, me, Sanya, and Veronica. The rest of us stayed in the auditorium, strengthening the barricade and checking our phones, as if that could change anything. Viktor Ilyich gave us a bunch of old keys and wished us luck, although there was more pain in his voice than confidence. He didn't want to let the students go, and I understood him. But waiting meant dying slowly, and going meant finding out how bad everything really was. The corridor greeted us with silence and dust. It felt like we hadn't stepped out, but rather seeped into another dimension. The dust hung so thick in the air that the beam of light from our flashlight penetrated it as if it were water. Everything seemed dead, as if the building had grown tired and decided not to be an academic building anymore. It had become an empty concrete box in which time was rotting. We walked slowly, trying not to breathe loudly. Sanya held a crowbar in his hands. I held the same dumbbell. Veronica held a knife from the buffet. Some kind of pathetic, but the only weapon we had. There was a dent in the door of the chemistry lab, as if something heavy had hit it. There were fingerprints nearby. Not blood, not dirt. Just fingerprints. Dark, as if covered in soot. The fingers were long, unnatural. I froze for a second, then inserted the key. The door clicked. Inside, everything was turned upside down. The tables were on their sides. The flasks were broken. The cabinets were open. The air smelled of acetone, alcohol, something else, more caustic. Sonia cursed under his breath. Veronica was already walking along the shelves, stuffing everything she needed into her backpack. Alcohol, bandages, iodine, rubber gloves, a bandage, anything. Look, she whispered and pointed to the emergency exit door. There was a palm print on the glass, bloody, but not a normal one. 5 fingers, but the thumb was at the bottom, as if someone had turned the hand upside down. We looked at each other in silence. Words were unnecessary. Further on, there's a buffet. It's been thrown open, as if someone was searching for food in a panic. Bags on the floor, crushed juice boxes. A knife is sticking out of the wall. I'm not exaggerating. It's literally sticking out. It's been driven in so deep that someone must have hit it in desperation or agony. We collected everything we could. Packs of crackers, bottles of water, a couple of packs of instant coffee, packages of buckwheat. Sonia even brought 2 bread knives. Then we saw the refrigerator. It was open, and inside was not food. A body. A human one. More precisely, part of it, from the neck to the waist. The rest had probably been taken. The head was missing. Everything else was wrapped in tape, as if someone had tried to hide it, or save it. We didn't scream. We didn't even flinch. We just looked. For a long time. Then Sonia quietly closed the refrigerator door. He didn't speak, but I saw his fingers clench. We were going back quickly, almost running. The air was getting thicker, and there was a presence around every corner. A ghostly one. We couldn't see anything, but we knew someone was there, hearing, waiting. At the entrance to the auditorium, everything was in place. We were let in. Quickly. Everyone looked at us as if we were messengers. We silently packed up the provisions, the first aid kit, and only later, closer to lunch, I told about the refrigerator, about the body. Some closed their eyes. Some cried. Some began to pray again. But no one said, "You're lying." Everyone knew it was true, and then we realized this is not panic, not a mistake, and not even a catastrophe. This is the end of the old world. After our foray, everything changed. It no longer felt like we were just waiting it out. We brought more than just water and bandages. We brought fear. The kind that sticks to your skin, soaks into the walls, and lingers between your gazes, even when no one is speaking. Sonia was silent. He sat by the window, looking out the cloudy glass, and his fingers kept fiddling with the crowbar, as if he was trying to learn it by touch, to become one with it. Veronica went to a girl named Lita. She was from the biology department. She understood viruses. They whispered about something for a long time. I didn't listen. I just sat and thought about how to look into the eyes of those who remained in the audience. People began to change, fast, even those who were strong. Viktor Ilyich no longer looked like a professor. He sat in the corner, staring at the ceiling as if the answer was supposed to appear there. One of the first-year students, a kid with a haircut like he had just come from a concert, began to suspect everyone who went beyond the boundaries. He came up with the idea of isolating the intruders, like who knows who brought what. It's a virus, airborne or whatever, or through the skin. What if you caught something? He spoke like a child who builds logic out of fears, but they began to agree with him, in whispers, with a half glance, with a quick nod. There was no longer unity, only factions, those who go outside and those who stay inside, those who look into the eyes and those who look away. Veronica just smirked at this. If you're afraid, we can leave. Let's see how long you can hold out here without water and medicine. Her voice was calm, even, but her eyes were heavy, with a hint of anger. Sonia, without getting up, said, "Just try to isolate us. Then you won't be afraid of the virus, but of me." Everyone fell silent. The tension hung like a light bulb about to explode. We looked at each other not as friends, but as potential threats. And I realized something I feared more than zombies was beginning. Mistrust. We decided not to leave. We stayed. but not together anymore. At night, we slept apart. The watch became a formality. No one could really sleep. Everyone listened. They looked for changes. And the next morning, one of the students, Renat, did not wake up. We found him in the corner, behind the closet. His face was twisted, his eyes were open, his mouth was covered in black foam. No one heard him die. No one came up to him. Only when the smell became obvious, someone called me and Sonia. "They didn't bite him," Veronica whispered. "I remember exactly. He didn't come out. He was even afraid to approach the door." "It's not necessarily from a bite," said Lyda. "It could have happened on its own. Heart, or an allergy, or hysteria, or something else," added Sonia. "We don't know what kind of infection this is." Renata was not touched for a long time. We just sat and watched, as if we did not move, he would disappear, dissolve. But the smell did not disappear. The smell of death is not mistaken. We took the body out, wrapped it in a blanket, found black garbage bags from the utility room, lowered it into the basement, didn't bury it, just left it. From then on, no one spoke loudly in the audience. We ate separately, we drank, looking at the floor. No one wanted to meet each other's eyes, because a look is an accusation. We survived, yes, but not as a group, but as a collection of individuals, each with their own fears, their own plans, their own end. And most importantly, we understood the virus does not kill everyone at once. It waits. It chooses. It penetrates not only the blood, it penetrates the head. We needed something that would resemble structure, at least the illusion of order. After Renat's death, and that's what we now called it, death, not an incident, not an accident, it became clear chaos had already seeped in, and if we didn't put boundaries to it, it would tear us apart. I suggested a signal system, simple like in childhood at camp. 2 knocks, all is quiet. 3, alarm. 1 long press, help. Sonia drew a diagram. Which offices could be used as observation points, where to place posts, how to exchange news. Inside the building, we no longer thought about the outside world. Every exit outside the auditorium was now accompanied by the consent of the entire group. We did not want a repeat of the hysteria. The duty officers now went in 2s or 3s, only during the daytime, and each time along a clearly designated route. On the 3rd day, we decided to check the information systems department. Sonia said that there were radios there, old but maybe working. I went with him and a guy from the 3rd year, Vitya. He used to laugh louder than everyone else, but now he only spoke in a whisper. The corridors greeted us with a rotting smell. The walls were covered in graffiti, not paint. It looked like blood, but more like something dark and dried, and the graffiti weren't words. Symbols, some circles, arrows, strange intersections, as if someone was trying to convey a message, but in a language we didn't know. The department was empty. The windows were boarded up, the server room was burnt out, but they did find 2 radios in the storage room. Sonia flicked the switch, crackling, then hissing. But the signal went. We came to life. At least something worked. "Reception," said Sonia. "We are in the MISiS building. Is anyone on the line?" Silence. Then again, a crackle. And a whisper. No. "Here." We looked at each other. Sonia repeated. There was no answer, only in the earpiece, some breathing. We thought it was interference. But after a couple of seconds again, "They hear." The voice was ragged, as if through a film, and not electronic. Human, only with distortions. Vitya took a step back. His face turned ashen gray. I felt the cold growing in my chest, like ice under my skin. "Who was that?" I whispered. "Maybe someone from other buildings," said Sonia. But his eyes said, "He doesn't believe it." We decided to go back, and then, on the stairs, we saw him, human, infected. He stood, clinging to the railing, rocking back and forth. His face was burnt. His lips were cracked. His skin was like gray cardboard. But he didn't throw himself. He talked. "Don't look," he croaked. "Don't look inside." The voice was hoarse but clear, as if someone was speaking from it. Not himself, something else. We froze. We couldn't breathe or move. Then he suddenly shuddered and started banging his head against the wall. 1, 2, 3, blood. His knuckles left red marks on the walls. And then Sonia grabbed my hand. "Let's run." We didn't scream. We just ran up the stairs. There were blows behind us. Then they stopped. Disappeared. The radio in the backpack was crackling. Already not sleeping. When we got to the auditorium, I couldn't speak. I was shaking. Sonia was explaining something to the others, but I wasn't listening. Inside, there was a feeling that someone had seen us, right in the bones. No one asked questions. Everyone already understood. This is not just a virus. This is something else, something that looks through glass, through a person. And I realized the fear is no longer in them, but in ourselves. We have become vulnerable, not in body, in consciousness. From the moment we heard the voice on the radio and saw him, something broke completely. There were no illusions left. We stopped discussing what would happen next. The word rescuers disappeared from conversations. We began to build our own reality, black, damp, and stinking, like a basement in which someone had already died. Last night, I dreamed that I was back in the classroom. I was sitting in my place, and Victor Ilyich was writing something on the board, just like before. Only the letters weren't formulas. They were someone's names, crossed out. And the professor turned around, and I saw that he had no eyes, just holes from which a black, pulsating liquid was oozing. He said, "Don't look inside." I woke up screaming. Someone nearby twitched. Someone sobbed. We no longer really slept. We only fell into unconsciousness, where something lurked that wouldn't let us go completely. In the morning, Victor Ilyich himself came up to me. For the first time in recent days, he spoke calmly, without commands. "I was in the virology department," he said, "a long time ago, before I retired. We were taught that a virus is not a living thing. It's a mechanism, but what's happening doesn't look like a biological process." "Why do you think so?" He looked at me and said, "Because it studies us, adapts, keeps quiet, then speaks. It doesn't kill quickly. It waits, as if it's interested in our reaction, our fear." He fell silent. Then he added, "I think it is already among us." That same day, one of the students, Danya, left, on his own, quietly, without shouting. He wrote on the board, "I don't want to become one of them." He was never seen again. Only a day later, Sonia found his jacket by the elevator landing, and next to it, scraps of a notebook, a half-erased phrase, "There's more inside than outside." We started hanging mirrors. Veronica came up with it. She said that the infected look different in the reflection. Nonsense, of course, but we hung them up anyway. Any illusion of control is better than complete powerlessness. On the 5th day, a signal came over the radio. Clear, no interference. North Group, we are in the Kotlovka area. We have secured the Hydro Project building. The ventilation is blocked. The entrance from the street is welded shut. Food for a week. If anyone is alive, please respond. We looked at each other. People. Alive. So we're not alone. Sonia grabbed the transmitter, but Victor Ilyich stopped him. "Wait, what if it's a trap?" "Whose?" "I don't know, but now you can't be sure of anything. Not of people, not of voices." I saw despair in Sonia's eyes, real, like a man who found water in the desert and was told, "Don't drink it, it's gasoline." In the evening, there was a ruckus. One of the guys, Max, from the math department, started to rave. He said he heard the walls whispering, that the floor was breathing. that someone had walked across the ceiling. He scratched his arms, then hit his head on the board. 4 people were holding him. I was standing next to him, and he suddenly looked at me and whispered, "Nastya, you know they're inside. You can already feel it." I didn't answer, because he was right. Something was sitting inside, not the virus, not the pain, something else, like a heaviness in my chest that wouldn't go away, like a fear that wasn't fear anymore, but the norm. We isolated Max in the old office next door, locked him in. Half an hour later, he went silent. The next morning, the door was open, empty, no blood, no traces, only on the wall, a sign scratched with fingernails. "You already here, you just don't admit it." We left at dawn. During the night, we discussed for a long time who would go. In the end, 3 went. Me, Sonia, and Veronica. The rest stayed, closing the door behind us, now without words, only looks. Tired. Hunted, as if we were dying before their eyes, without even taking a step. The goal was clear, to find the hydro project building in the Kotlovka area, where, according to the signal, the Saver Group had established itself. We took the radios with us. The rest were knives, a first aid kit, a power bank, a flashlight, and some leftover food. Moscow ceased to be a city. It became a shadow, deaf, empty, with gray houses, as if made of paper, and roads where the asphalt seemed to be deaf because no one drove on it anymore. The sound of footsteps echoed as if someone was listening around every corner. We walked through courtyards. We avoided open spaces. Sometimes we heard dull thuds in the distance, not like gunshots, more like the rumble of iron on concrete. Once beyond the Third Ring Road, we saw an overturned tram. Not a soul inside, only scraps of clothing, a strange fog near the floor, and footprints, not boots, but as if someone was dragging their feet. We did not approach. We turned onto Krzhizhanovsky Street. There was silence here, abnormal, like before an explosion. And then we saw him. He was standing at the entrance. An ordinary man at first glance. Jeans, a gray jacket, a face. No, not a face. A mask, made of leather. Eyes, dead, cloudy, but open, as if he was looking. Right at us. We froze. Sonia was already holding the crowbar, Veronica the knife. I didn't move. He took a step, heavy, slow, then another. The body, as if it fell apart with the movement like a mannequin, but the muscles under the clothes lived. And then he rushed, not with a groan, not with a scream, with a jerk. Instantly, he was 3 meters away, then 1. Sonia hit. Once. In the side. He didn't stop. He only wheezed. Veronica screamed. I drove the dumbbell into his temple. He fell, but not right away. He was struggling, twitching, like a fish on the sand. We stood over him, breathing heavily. Then, silence. Not a sound. "Was it him?" Veronica whispered. Is it real?" "Yes," said Sonia. "No words," I added. "No connection, just a body." "Predator," he said. "All that remains is the hunt." We buried him. Not like human beings. We just buried him in the snow and earth, in a park by the road. Veronica left a note on the spot. "We don't forget, even if it's not you anymore." On the way to Hydro Project, we saw a reinforced roof, boarded up windows, smoke from the chimney. So there really is someone alive there. There was a knock at the gate. Voice, hoarse, rough. "Who are you?" "We are from MISiS. We heard your signal." "Check. Do you have any infected people?" "No." "Show your hands." Eyes, tongue. They checked. They let us in, slowly. Carefully. There are about 15 people inside, all armed, dirty, quiet. One of them, an elderly man with glasses without lenses, came closer. "We thought the students had all died. How did you get through?" "We made it through." "We're alive," said Sonia. "That's good," the old man said. "It's safe here. But children, This isn't Moscow. This is a different world, and there's no room for hope in it, only for calculation. He didn't lie. While we were sitting by the fire, I saw 2 of their men tie someone to a pipe, a young one, screaming, begging, saying he wasn't infected. What if he's lying? Asked the woman with the machine gun. Better safe than sorry, said another. One has already given us all up. We won't do it again. I looked at the fire, and I felt something inside me breaking, because now I knew the people who survived longer than us are not the same. We barely slept the first night in the camp, not because it was cold, although it was cold too, not because we were scared, although fear permeated even the concrete walls, but because everything around us seemed alien. These people were not happy to see us. They did not ask where we were from, who we were. They looked through us, as if we were a temporary phenomenon, as if we were a shadow that would either disappear on its own or would need to be removed. We were given a place in the corner of the former conference room, a couple of mats, an army blanket, and a flask of water for 3. Veronica sat hugging her knees and looking at the floor. Sanya was silent. His eyes darted around the room, as if looking for an exit that wasn't there. And I just lay there. I listened to someone whispering behind the wall, "If he's coughing, we should throw him out." The next morning, they gathered us. The eldest, the one with the glasses without lenses, introduced himself as Pavel Alexeyevich. They obeyed him, even those who looked stronger. "We're not a hotel," he said. "We have rules. If you want to stay, you work. If you want to leave, you leave, but you don't come back." Sanya nodded. Veronica didn't answer. I just asked, "What kind of work?" Gathering, security, cleaning, patrols. We were sent to the warehouse, 3 of us with a guy from their group named Gosha. He was older, with a crooked nose and a look as if he was always half angry. Silently handed us respirators and metal rods. "If anything happens, hit him in the throat or in the back of the head," he said. "Anything else is useless." We walked along the back streets. Gosha spoke little but clearly. He had no illusions, no questions, only clear algorithms. First a look, then a step, then a blow. The warehouse turned out to be empty. Judging by the traces, there had been a battle here at some point. There were dents on the walls, shell casings on the floor, and stains. Old ones. The air was musty and had something resembling rust. We took some canned food, a couple of packs of sugar, tools. We came back. On the way, we met a stray. Not a zombie, just a man. An ordinary man. 40 years old, maybe. All his clothes were covered in dust. His eyes were crazy. He asked for water. He asked like a child. Gosha picked up the stick. "Don't come any closer," he said. "Not even a meter." "But he's a human!" Veronica shouted. "Do you know him? He's asking for help. He can infect everyone." And he hit. Right on the knee. The man fell. Howled. Gosha turned around and walked on as if nothing had happened. We stood there. I felt my fingers shaking. I wanted to scream, but I knew that if I interfered now, we would not return. The camp accepted the food silently. They didn't say anything to us, not even a thank you. In the evening, I approached Pavel Alexeyevich. "What if you're wrong? What if someone was healthy? If..." He looked me straight in the eye. "Girl, in this world, if is death. We have no time for morality. We are here because we refused to believe in goodness. We are alive, and that is the most we can do. What if you become like that yourself?" He didn't answer. He just turned away. And then I realized he had already become. Sanya told me at night, "We can't stay here. They are like stone, without a soul. Do we have another option?" He fell silent, and then the first letter arrived, not paper, a note, slid under the mat. "In the building of the old printing house on Schwernik, there are those who still believe. We are looking for people like you. If you remember who you are, come." I didn't know who it was from, but my heart started pounding. For the first time, not from fear, from something else. Maybe from hope. Or maybe from even greater fear, because if even inside this hell someone whispers about faith, it means the game is just beginning. At night, no one sleeps in the camp. They just pretend to. People toss and turn, cough into their fists, listen to someone else's breathing. Every sound seems to be imprinted on the walls. The scraping of a clasp, the crunch of the floor, a quiet groan. Someone is stealing. Someone is praying. Someone is holding a sharpened nail in their hand and waiting for the time when they need to use it. We left without a word. Sonia broke down the back door, the one that leads to the trash can. Veronica found a map in the archive room. I gathered up the remains of the food and hid the flashlight under my jacket. When the gates closed behind me again, I felt not relief, but emptiness, as if I had left a prison that had at least some kind of system. And now, a vacuum. No rules, no boundaries, just us and the night. The road to the printing house went through the park. Once upon a time, children ran here. Grandmothers fed pigeons. Now there was only wind. The trees creaked like old people who had not waited for spring. The lawn was all in ash. Perhaps they had burned something here. Perhaps someone. We walked in silence. We no longer said, if we get there. We said, when? As if you don't believe in death, it will retreat. The printing house greeted us with a wall, a real one, made of sacks, boards, metal, twice the height of a man. Not a camp, a fortress. Outside, a sign, a red circle with an open palm in it. Sonia knocked twice, then 3 times. On the note, we waited, 5 seconds, 10, 30, then a rustle and a voice, a woman's. Tired. Who are you? We are from MISiS. We came in response to a message. Password? He wasn't there. Silence. Go to the left side. 1 camera. We walked around. There was a peephole in the wall. Behind it, a lens. A long pause. Then the clicks of locks. The wooden doorway opened slightly and we were let in. There was light inside. Warm. Yellow. Not cold. Like in the Sever, a woman in a headscarf, about 40 years old with dark eyes, led us inside. Behind her was a man in a sweater, gray-haired, and 2 more teenagers, all clean, no weapons. We don't shoot, she said. We heal, we hide, we live. What if they attack? Asked Sonia. Then we will die, but we will not become like them. The room was furnished like a communal apartment. Beds, stoves, a fan heater, books, maps. On the walls were photographs, real ones, children's drawings, light bulbs with batteries. And suddenly, silence. Kind, calm, unusual. Why did you write to us? Veronica asked. Because you didn't give each other away, the woman said. Why, we were watching. Through a contact. You remained human. That's the main thing. We stayed the night. They gave us tea. Real tea with time. We sat at the table, listening to the boy read aloud an old story about the moon. And suddenly I felt, I am alive. Not just breathing. I am living. But closer to midnight, the door slammed. Everyone fell silent. There he is. On the threshold, not a zombie and not a human, something in the middle. He stood silently. His skin was pale, his veins were dark, his eyes were like burnt holes, but he did not rush. He only whispered, very quietly, "You called." The children began to scream. The man with gray hair grabbed the poker. The woman stepped forward and whispered, "He came for me." "Who is he?" Sonia shouted. "My brother. But he hears. He speaks. He doesn't eat. Yet. He's one of the first." "What do you mean, the first?" "Before the mutation. When the virus was still intelligent?" I froze. He raised his hand and whispered, "Save me, before it's too late." And then for the first time I thought, maybe all this is not about death. Maybe this is all about evolution. His name was Semyon. He sat in the corner, wrapped in a blanket, and drank water in small sips, as if each sip echoed inside. He hardly moved. Only his eyes, dark without pupils, were constantly looking towards the door, not like an animal, not like a man, like something that no longer belonged to either one. Veronica and I didn't move away. Sonia, on the contrary, stayed closer to the wall. His hand was on the crowbar. He didn't say anything, but I felt how he clenched his jaw when Semyon opened his mouth. "I'm not like them," he repeated. I hear you. I remember my mother's name. I know what the winter of '98 was like. I smell the chalk. The voice was broken, like an old tape that had been rewound too many times. "Why didn't you attack?" Veronica asked. Because I don't want to. Not yet." He lowered his head and added, "But I hear them. All of them. They are close, getting closer." The older woman, the one who let us in, her name was Nina Lvovna, told us everything. Semyon was among the first to be bitten, but he didn't die. He didn't transform, or, more accurately, not completely. His body changed, his speech broke, but his memory remained, sometimes in flashes. "It's like a sentence," she said. "It's a mirror. We look at it and see what awaits us if we don't give in, or if we give in too soon." "And he could be contagious," said Sonia. "He's a time bomb. He needs to be isolated." "We don't isolate people," she replied, "even exes." And then I realized what awaited us. 2 hours later, a signal came over the radio. From the distant sector, one of the observers saw them, a flock, 6, 8 together, slow, then faster, then running. Semyon raised his head, closed his eyes, and said, "They found me. I was the anchor. Now they know where to go." "We have to go," Veronica shouted. "We don't have time," added Sonia. "Either we kill him, or we leave." I looked at Semyon. He sat silently. He didn't defend himself. He only whispered, "If I die, they will still come. But if I stay, at least you will know." "What?" "They're getting faster. And quieter. They're learning. I'm proof." At that moment, everything inside me broke. We were faced with a choice that is not made by heroes, just by the living, broken, tired, and I knew that whatever we decided, it would not be right. Nina Lvovna looked at us. "You can leave. We are not holding you. But we will not kill him, even if he brings death with him." We didn't argue. We just went out, into the silence, to the wall, and only then at the concrete span Sonia said, "If all this is true, if they are learning." "The end is not a fall," I said. "It's an ascent, just not ours." We watched as a light rose in the distance beyond the horizon, either a fire or an explosion, or just a glow. Semyon remained there, inside, among those who still believe, and we walked into the night. And we knew, the next one we meet won't talk. He'll run, he'll know where to hit, and maybe he already knows our names. We left before dawn. The printing house was behind us. There was still light, the smell of boiling water, and people who, contrary to logic, believed that the soul was more important than a shot. We left with the feeling that we were tearing ourselves out of a warm body. I turned around. Semyon was standing in the window. His eyes were glowing in the darkness, not from anger, from pain. He didn't wave. We walked through neighborhoods where people used to live, high-rise buildings, peeling walls, playgrounds with overturned swings. There were no birds, no sound, just the wind and our footsteps. Sonia was silent. He walked first. Veronica followed me. She looked different. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. Her lips were chapped. She was still holding on. But I saw that something in her was starting to crack. We wanted to get to the medical center near Akademicheskaya. According to the old maps, there might be some drugs left there, and maybe long-range radios, and also a chance to meet someone who doesn't shoot right away. We walked almost all day, then snow, dry, prickly, right in the face. We took shelter in a half-destroyed kiosk. There was a corpse there, not a zombie, a man, frostbitten. He had a note in his pocket. "If you're reading this, Don't go to the clinic. They're there, waiting." Sonia cursed and crumpled the paper. "We'll go anyway," he said. "What if it's a trap?" Veronica asked. "Then we will die on the move and not in a trash can." I remained silent, and we went. The clinic was barricaded, but there were fresh traces at the entrance. The door was slightly open. Inside, there was the smell of iodine, burning, plastic, dim light from emergency lamps, and a sound, like breathing, deep, measured, not animal, human. There's someone," I whispered. "Or something," answered Sonia. We walked through 2 floors. The wards were empty, the beds were overturned, the windows were boarded up. On the walls, in marker, "Don't make noise, they can feel it." And then it happened. On the 3rd floor there was a sharp rustle, then silence. We stopped. The heart was beating as if everyone could hear it. "Back," said Sonia. Late. He emerged from the shadows, not dragging his leg, not groaning, fast, purposeful, a jump, not like a sick person, like a predator, hand forward, claws, real, fused with bone. I screamed, Sonia pushed me, a blow, metal on bone, Veronica with a knife, in the neck, zombie, does not fall, only growls, not hoarsely, intelligently, as if he understands who is the boss. He was aiming at Sasha. Another blow, then a second. Finally, he falls, shakes, beats, and freezes. We breathe, we fall to the floor, and then I understand, Sonia is not moving. Sonia? Silence. There's a cut under his shirt. Deep, already dark. There's blood on his fingers. He looks at me. His eyes are clear. Nastia. You know, right? I nod. He's not afraid. He's just tired. Very tired. "Don't let them make me one of them," he says. "Please." I hug him. Veronica steps away. She can't look, and I can't turn away. He lives until sunset. Then I take his crowbar, and I do what I must, without tears, without words. I just do it. We walked in silence. We buried Sonia right behind the clinic, as best we could. Stones instead of earth, pieces of plywood instead of a cross. Veronica threw his lighter into the hole. I am the token he wore around his neck with the key to the dorm. I didn't want to cry. There was emptiness inside. Not pain, not rage, just nothing. Now there were 2 of us left, 2 against a city in which there were no more routes, no addresses, only gray fields of streets in which either animals or former people hid. We moved along the outskirts. We walked through garages, empty kindergartens, boarded up shops where dolls still stood in the windows. I didn't look them in the eye. Veronica barely spoke. At times I thought she had broken, but there was something steely about her. Not cold, just steely. She looked ahead and clutched the knife as if she were ready to use it on others as well as herself. On the 7th day, they found us. First, a scream in the distance. Then, the roar of an engine. A real one. A stranger's silhouette on the roof with a weapon. Then, a sharp light in the face, headlights, and a voice in a megaphone. "Don't move. Hands on the ground, immediately." We obeyed. There were 7 of them, in identical jackets, masks, with patches in the form of a burning circle. Later I learned that this was the Order of the Burning Ashes. They believed that the infection was fire, and the survivors were ash. They did not save. They sorted. We were taken to their camp, the former district administration building. Inside, everything is strict. Tents, security, lists, silence. No one laughs. Even the children, if there were any, are silent. They only speak on business, only orders. We were given rations, vodka, in drops, water, according to the schedule. We went through interrogation. Surname? Widow. Age? 22. Were there any bites? No. Did you kill them yourself? Yes, they didn't ask who. They just noted. Then they brought us into the common area. 50 people, all in the same clothes. No mirrors, no jewelry, no traces of the past. The chief called himself the Inquisitor. No last name. His face was always in a hood. He did not shout. You could not even see him often, but everyone was afraid. I spent my first night in the camp lying on the concrete floor. There was a vent above my head. Through it, I could hear someone sobbing, quietly, gasping for breath. In the morning, the oath. Everyone lines up. Hands forward, they repeat. I am ashes. I was burned. I will remain ashes. If I flare up, I will burn to the end. Those who don't speak are taken away. We don't know where. Veronica whispers, "This is not survival. This is a cult." I nod, but remain silent. On the third day, they send us to clean up. No questions asked. To a house next to the ring, 5 floors. Suspected of a nest, we find, but not zombies, people, a family, hiding, children, a woman, a father with a bandaged hand. The officer orders, "Clean up." I look into the eyes of a child. He is holding a teddy bear, a torn one. Veronica throws the knife. "No," she says, "they're not enemies." The officer takes out his gun, points it, slowly, confidently. I take a step. There is cold between us. "Stop," I say. "No need. They did not comply with the quarantine. This is a violation. They are alive. You too, for now." He doesn't shoot, yet. But at that moment, I understand. We were not saved. We simply exchanged death for power. And at some point, they will become worse than those who moan in the dark, because they have no choice. And we had it. We escaped on the 5th day, at night, through a ventilation tunnel using blueprints stolen from headquarters. Veronica found them among the papers, under the burning schedule. Escape was not a plan. It was an instinct. We realized that one more day, and we would become part of a system where the word mercy means a shot in the back of the head, out of respect, where everything human is taken away, like an infected organ. The guards spotted us near the courtyard. We ran like rats through canals, not from evil, but from fire. Sirens howled above us, screams behind us. But we knew that if we stopped, they wouldn't kill us. They would cleanse us. The shot rang out outside the perimeter. Veronica stumbled. Her hand was covered in blood. A bullet in her side. Unclean. Torn flesh. Her breathing ragged. "Nastia," she said. "Run." No. I won't make it. You know, I knew, but I couldn't say it out loud. I just sat down next to her. I hugged her. She was cold. For the first time, really. "You know what's the worst part?" she whispered. "If they hadn't shot, maybe I would have stayed." "You're not like that. I'm tired, and I liked that someone was telling me what to do. I felt calm." "It's scarier than zombies, Nastia." I held her until the very end, until her eyes stopped shaking, until her lips closed, until her heart let go. Then I stood up, took her knife, and left into the darkness, to where only I remained. And one more point on the old map. Fire at the plant. Group Shakta, the last survivors. We accept everyone. But don't expect light. I got there on the 3rd day, barefoot, without food, with a sore throat and a charred voice. On the way, there were 2 infected. I didn't fight. I just walked around them. They were weak, or tired like me. The plant greeted me with a roar. Torches, machines, people in cloaks, they don't greet you. They don't ask questions. They just lead you to the door and say, either you stay or you go into the night. I stayed. And now, as I write this, or maybe I'm just thinking, I'm sitting by the wall, where instead of a clock, there is a scratched inscription, "You didn't survive. You just didn't die." I, Anastasia Vedovina, 22 years old, a student at MISiS. I'm not a student anymore. I'm not Anastasia anymore. I am something in between. That which goes further, not because it wants to, but because it can no longer do otherwise. Because death is not a zombie. Death is when there is no more room for hope inside. And I'm still looking for fire. even in ashes. The factory has no windows, only iron, dirty, rusty, like the bones of the city that no one wants to bury anymore. Here, they don't ask, "Who are you?" Here they give you a shovel, or a crowbar, or cartridges, and they nod toward the wall. Someone is needed there. Every day is like a copy of the previous one. A porridge of powder, water with a taste of burnt plastic, people without faces. One day, and you no longer know who lives next to you. Two, and you don't care. I learned to shoot. I learned to cut. I learned not to turn away when I hear someone in the dark calling for mom, sometimes in a child's voice, sometimes in a roar. The difference is becoming smaller. The Shakta group doesn't believe in purification. They believe in control. There's no prayer here. There's surveillance. Everyone, even the dead. There's a ditch around the plant. Signal mines. Cameras, a satellite dish they can't fix, but they still try to get a signal every week. "What if," says one of the guards, "someone answers from there?" "Where?" He shrugs. "From the world. From the world." The word seems to be from a foreign language, as if it wasn't where we lived, but a fictional place from an old movie, where there was coffee, the metro, and parks with beetles in amber. One night while on duty I saw a child, a real one, a girl of about 8, sitting by the fence, dirty, thin, but alive. I took a flashlight and went out to her. "Are you alone?" I asked. She nodded. Her lips were chapped. In her hands was a plush snake, a toy. One eye was torn out. Do you want to come in?" She looks. She tilts her head and says, "What if I'm not me anymore?" I froze. The question sounded like an echo from within. I didn't know what to say. She stood up slowly, moved into the shadows, and disappeared. I didn't tell anyone, because if you tell, they might kill you. They don't believe in weird things here. They're afraid of them. And then I realized I stayed alive, not because I'm smart, not because I'm strong, but because I'm empty, like iron, like a bullet, like a factory. Sometimes at night I hear footsteps, not zombies, not people, something in between. Like the idea that we could be someone else is walking inside the concrete walls. I am not writing this down because I believe that anyone will read it, because I have to remind myself, I existed. I was Nastia. I loved coffee from the machine. I kissed in the elevator. I was afraid of failing physics. Now I'm afraid to forget. It's not the virus that's killing us. It's not the zombies. We die when we cease to be ourselves. And I still remember the smell of the pages of my term paper, old ink, and the light scent of spring outside the window. And as long as I remember, I live.